Alright, so first game is up against Branded Dark Lords, which is kind of interesting. We're going first, and the opponent has no disruption. So on draw phase, we're going to start with Concours de Cuisine to protect our first search from draw, and that allows us to assemble the trinity of Poissonnier, the Bouillabaisse, and the Recette de Poisson, which lets us excavate a bunch of stuff. We whiff the excavation, happens. Oh well, but then we can still go through our standard line with just the cards that we already have access to get to Balamunet, get à table gets us our counter trap. We're back up to 5 cards in hand on end phase, which is pretty funny, and we have the standard disruptions coming from the counter trap and the Balamunet, and we drew the extra droplet that we didn't need because we were going first, so that is just an extra disruption on our end board, which is pretty cool. We're going to start by countering a bunch of stuff, and because we don't have a whole ton of counters in this deck, we just have the one, they use the Despia to get to Masquerade, which is not the worst thing in the world for us, because Masquerade is not really a disruption. They go to battle phase, and we immediately tribute it in battle phase. Masquerade comes back once, so we tribute it again, and now we have more stuff on board. They go to use the Aluber that they searched earlier. We negate that, and they're like, fine, that's it, can't play through that much. And so yeah, complete shutout just coming from assembling the standard Nouvelle combo with one extra card. Actually, if we didn't have the droplet, that could have been spicy because Aluber grabs Branded Fusion sets off a whole chain of stuff. We're still probably okay, but we might have lost our whole board and had to rebuild if they got to a Mirror Jade there, so we'd rather just not let them, and the droplet came in clutch. Cool, cool. Alright, second game, we are up against Blue Eyes. We are going second with just a Fuelos to our name. So the thing is that while they ash our Fuelos here, I'm pretty sure they're screwing up their combo something fierce, because I don't play Blue Eyes, but I'm pretty sure they're supposed to end on more than just the one negate. So that just kind of makes our job pretty easy, which is good because this hand is not particularly good. But our top deck will save it, and we have the droplet to turn off the one negate that they have. We just pitch Chef's Special, which means that they can counter it, but that's fine because it gets the one negate out anyways, so that's all that really matters. So we now have assembled Poissonnier, the Bouillabaisse, and the Recette de Poisson, which means we can go through the standard line that gets us pretty far into our ritual stuff while tributing their entire board. Though it's not completely over yet, just because we, as a Nouvelle deck, we are not terribly good at closing out the game. All of our stuff has relatively small attack values, and the one saving grace there is normally Albazoa, but we don't have a hand that can really get us to Albazoa this game. So, like, we just end up tributing it for cost and then swing for what we have, and then we have to pass back. But we have so many things already on board. We can go into Balamune easily, which means we can get our other board wipes on. We still have our negate. So this is full end board through their negate and their whole end board getting destroyed. So it's pretty over at this point. We just don't automatically have the attack to finish it off. But once we tribute all of their stuff, they're gonna realize that it's over just as easily as we did and scoop it up. So yeah, they messed up their combo. Honestly, even if they had done their combo correctly and they get to their second negate, we still could have probably won. We just would have had to use Forbidden Droplet for 2 and discard an actual monster to make sure that we turn off both negates, at which point we still could have just won. But, you know, it's a scary thing when this deck actually does what it's supposed to. Alright, game 3, we are going second up against Gem Knights. Gem Knights is a deck where I have no idea what they're actually trying to do. I know that they are fusion focused and they can put some negates on board, but I have never actually played around with it, and I know they got new support that I haven't taken a particularly close look at, even though I do know that Hollow Core is a good card. But They kind of spin their wheels for a bit and mostly just end on one disruption and a bunch of big bodies. I know one of the bodies, I believe this guy they just summoned, when sent to grave, will like send one of our things, so that gives them 2 disruptions and whatever the back row is, but our hand is killer. So we turn off their 1 negate with the droplet that we draw, and then we give them a coverture, grab our poissonnier, which gives us everything we need to just start going through our combo and tributing all of their pieces and everything. So without the 1 negate, I'm not sure what they have that can disrupt us as we're going. We grab Palti, we get back our Poissonnier, and they use a Nibiru because they recognize this is going south quickly. And then they use that effect I mentioned to send something to grave when their card is sent to grave to send the token, which is a pretty funny interaction. Unfortunately for them, we don't put negates on board, so they could have just held the Nibiru until the end of our combo. And because they did not, we are still able to put an Albazoa, rip apart their extra deck, and they had a Called By was their back row, so they stopped the Natis, but they see that we still can just do everything at this point. So, you know, again, it's another one of those games where matchup knowledge matters, because if they had held everything until we went to battle and then they nibbed, we probably lost that game. But because they don't know what we do, they just popped it as early as possible, and we win because of it. Alright, so for our last game, we are going first up against the new TCG exclusive deck, the RB archetype. So this is a deck that I've seen a couple of times now as a going second deck, because they have an easy time putting a lot of damage on the board pretty quickly. So they throw 2 hand traps at us, and it turns out that's the magic number that we cannot play through, so we have to pass on just a Droll on board. The Droll stops them from OTKing us, but you can see that it's quite a lethal deck, because they get us to 2100 in 1 turn, but thanks to the Droll, they can't kill us, they have to pass back. They have a couple of disruptions. They had another Ash in hand for the pre-prep we top-decked. We can normal summon Gen to draw 2, but they use their 1 negate on the concourse that we draw. Thankfully, between Chef and Barilla Base, we managed to put a threat on the field, and then we can use the negated concourse after, of course, getting a Palti off of our Barilla Base, which you can see, like I mentioned in the deck guide, Barilla Base's Excavate doesn't hit the stuff that we actually care about. Palti is never something we want. But we can shuffle it back in to draw an extra card that doesn't matter, and then we can climb up through our rituals into Balamune, tribute their entire board, negate their field spell, and then we can pass on a few disruptions here to their 1 card they're going to draw for turn. So you can see that if we get going, we're pretty good at breaking a board and establishing our own, but again, for the 4th game in a row, we are unable to just close out the game, so we have to ride on the strength of those disruptions because we cannot OTK as easily as most decks nowadays. They do actually draw a starter, so we have to tribute the Dynamondo to grab back our Bale Grill, to tribute their guy to summon the Bale Grill. Fortunately, they don't have anything in graveyard, so that is enough to take care of this one, but it was pretty close and pretty scary. Cool.